We're live.
Oh my gosh! Hi, Periscope world, and welcome. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Watson. I'm the social meteorologist at the Weather Channel. And look who we have here. Hurricane expert Michael Lowry and Ari putting his head in here, trying to make sure.
I just want to make sure that we can hear what you're asking.
Yes. So obviously, Michael, what is today?
It's June 1. It's my favorite day of the year.
Your favorite day of the year?
It is. Well, besides July 4th. I like July 4th.
Yeah. So, but what does June 1st mark?
The start of hurricane season.
The start of hurricane.
The Atlantic hurricane
season.
season.
The Atlantic hurricane season. Now, the Pacific hurricane season started when?
May the 15th, so it starts a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we've got some good action going over there, too, right now.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's pretty rare to see hurricanes this strong in the Eastern Pacific this early in the season.
Yeah.
So, things are really, really starting to get moving already.
I would say so. So give us a little background for people who may not know you, because even we see you on TV, we see you on Twitter, social media, but a lot of us may not know your background. So give us a little background.
All right, well, I guess I'm from New Orleans, so that's sort of my original interest in hurricanes started there. I went to school at Florida State University, did my studies in meteorology. I did an undergrad, I did a master's.
Nice.
Did a lot of hurricane research. I worked for a research facility when I was there.
Nice.
Started as an undergraduate through graduate school.
Yeah.
When I was there, I also did emergency management for the state of Florida.
That's
I was an emergency manager in Florida at the state level in 2004 and 2005, so during those busy hurricane seasons.
Yeah.
And that, in and of itself, was an experience for me, being an emergency manager. Then from there, I was up in D.C. for a few years, worked for Department of Defense, and then...
So you've basically been everywhere, Michael.
Yeah, and then eventually down to Miami and at the National Hurricane Center, and then from there I came here.
So what fascinates you about hurricanes? Because obviously you're a meteorologist, but hurricanes is kind of your forte.
Yeah, well, to me, hurricanes are just the coolest things on the face of the planet. So I don't...
And you grew up in New Orleans, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, here's the cool thing about it, and I'm talking to a tornado person here.
Yes,
so I'm
kind of more of a fan of, not fan, I should say, but tornadoes interest me a little bit more than hurricanes.
Well, the thing about hurricanes is they have everything. I mean, it's the scale of a hurricane. There's just nothing like a hurricane. There's the surge, there's the rainfall, there's the tornadoes, kind of, and the wind. It's really just everything. And I think that what really draws me to hurricanes is that they affect so many people.
That's true. That's very
it's
true.
just like... And I think the communications part of it, and I've always said this, Jen, is I think that winter weather is the most difficult to forecast.
Yes.
The tornadoes are most difficult to cover because you're, having to keep up with everything. But then the hurricanes are the most difficult to communicate.
That's very true. You said that perfectly. Very well. So with that said, let's take a look at the forecast for the Atlantic hurricane season. Though keep in mind, just because I think most are saying it's below average, that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't prepare or do anything. So we'll see if we've got Ari Sarsalari, our digital meteorologist. He's our weather producer. Let's see if he can pull that up for us and we can put it behind us.
Okay.
We believe in you, Ari.
Thank you. And by the way, this is my first time, so I got to remember that there are people that are talking.
Yes,
to us.
there are people that are, and if you guys have questions about the hurricane season or a memory, definitely let us know.
I'm used to not having an audience that talks back to me.
And the thing is, if we miss your question because these questions move so quickly, just ask it again and we'll try and catch you. But hi to everyone, because everyone's saying hi. So.
And I love this. It only takes one hashtag. That's one that we can probably use all hurricane season.
Yes.
Because these are the numbers here. If you look on the screen. So
it is in front of us.
12, 6, and 3 is the average number of tropical storms or named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. But we're expecting pretty much a below-average season in terms of numbers. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
a little easier.
But again, these are just the numbers. It doesn't tell you anything about where the storms are going to go. So at the end of the day, does that really matter to you if you get one hurricane where you live?
It does. Well, yeah. I mean, you could have 1992 Hurricane Andrew. Was it was an El Nino year too? I think?
It was depending on which sort of measure you use. It was an El Nino year. 83 is a great example with Hurricane Alicia. If anybody that lives in Houston, that was a banner year for them in terms of impacts. The last sort of major hit to the Houston metro area.
So tell us a little bit about how El Nino will impact the hurricanes. and it's going to either make them less, not going to have as many, or how does that work?
Yeah, Ari, if you have the graphic, this is kind of instructive because it shows us how El Nino forms, but then ultimately what impact's going to have this hurricane season. So it's the warm waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean. It's that tongue of water along the equator, warmer than average.
And if waters. We can switch it in the camera in front of us, that'll work too.
We can see it in front of us. I'm not sure if they can see it.
There we go. There is a little bit of delay. There we go. Got it.
Right here.
So there's a question. Somebody just asking what's El Nino. It's that warm water in the eastern Pacific, but it creates all of this rising motion in the eastern Pacific, and that's really downstream the implications it has on the Atlantic, as it increases the upper level wind pattern or wind flow.
And kind of shears off the top, prevents any storms from really developing or getting.
Yeah, if you're looking for a developing hurricane, if you see winds that are going from west to east across the Atlantic Ocean at the upper part of the atmosphere, it's bad news.
Yeah,
you won't see any development. But here's the interesting part about this is that really El Nino is most pronounced. Its impacts are most pronounced in the Caribbean and over the tropical Atlantic, but not so much over the Gulf of Mexico and off the eastern seaboard. So kind of been saying this all day is you have one of these quick hitters, these sort of surprise storms that forms near the coast, and you have very little time to actually prepare for it.
And isn't in June we typically, some of the historical origins of tropical cyclones have been close to the coast, right?
They have. A great example of that would be Audrey in '57. Alicia, although it was in an August storm, it formed in the Gulf of Mexico very close to land. Andrew wasn't anything, guys. Probably people don't remember this, but it was not. I mean, people went to. I remember talking to friends of mine at the Hurricane Center who were there during Andrew.
Yeah.
And they left on Friday. The storm made landfall on Monday. They left Friday, and they're no big deal. And then Saturday, Sunday, boom! It just blew up over the Bahamas. So that was another one that formed really, at least kind of blossomed close to the coastline.
Well, the same thing with Hurricane Katrina. Wasn't Hurricane Katrina like a Category 1 or 2 in Miami, went over the Florida Peninsula and just exploded over the Gulf of Mexico?
It was a tropical storm off the Florida coast.
Yeah.
It strengthened to a hurricane before it got to Miami, and it got into the Gulf of Mexico, and then boom. I mean, time and time again, it doesn't matter, guys. It doesn't matter if it's an El Nino year. I'm glad it's an El Nino year. It means fewer storms, and so a little bit of a reduced risk for landfall. But nothing.
So, what would you tell people who live along the coast, and even not along the coast, because even inland, I mean, Hurricane Katrina produced tornadoes and everything, up around Starkville, Mississippi, a lot of areas across the southeast. So what would you tell people to do just to prepare and be safe?
I think that's kind of the biggest difference with hurricanes and some of the other types of severe weather that we have is that there's this going into the season, you have to be in the mindset of there are going to be hurricanes.
Yeah.
I need to have, when I lived in Miami, I'm telling you, going into the season, I would go and get my supplies. I was that guy.
Good. That's what you should do.
Find out if you live in an evacuation zone. I know it's boring stuff to you, but it's what you should be doing. You need to have a plan. If you're told to evacuate, where do you go? Are you going to a shelter? Are you going to a friend's house? And then, for a lot of cases, you just have to stay in place. And so what do you have? Do you have a battery-operated radio? Do you have food? All of that.
Now, someone just asked, when is the El Nino season over?
El Nino there's no real El Nino season. It's just whenever the waters are warm, and we're already in an El Nino. We're going to stay in that El Nino at least through, and you can see the forecast here. The lines popping up on the screen the forecast is for us to stay in an El Nino, even maybe get a little stronger. So we'll at least have an El Nino through the hurricane season, and beyond the hurricane season, obviously, there are also impacts to El Nino in terms of our weather across the U.S.
Got some questions. Who's ready for questions?
We're ready for questions.
Let's do it.
The questions, all right?
Good.
Thanks, Ari. We like
this.
this.
Has a hurricane ever hit California?
Yes, a hurricane has hit California back in the late 1800s. There was or mid 1800s, there was a hurricane that hit San Diego.
You see, he's like a human encyclopedia on
I don't know.
tropical cyclones.
There are other people that are better at that than I am.
Yeah. Now, do you have anything special, any cool graphics you want to show us or you want to touch on?
Well, we could talk about what's happening right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Aria, do we have? I mean, I'm trying to keep track of this fire hose of questions.
Yes.
Here, let me give you another one while I pull up the graphic. Did the Pacific hurricane season ever end this year? They might be referring to the Westpac season. Does it ever end?
Yeah, there's no hurricane season out in the Western Pacific Ocean. Only the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic do we have those sort of key months or prime months for development. Okay. So you can get storms in January and December in the Western Pacific.
So here's another question. We all know, we've heard it's going to be a below average year in the Atlantic, but is there any spot that's more likely to see one storm this year? I mean, I know we've got the El Nino going on. Is there like any spot where it would be maybe just a little bit more likely than another spot on the East Coast, maybe?
Good question, Ari.
That's a really good question. There's not really a whole lot we can say on that. I will say that the odds are probably it's really hard to say. I mean, it's like a bad football team. It's like any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather pattern,
yeah.
you can get a win, you can get a hit. So it's really hard to say this far out.
So someone just asked, why don't hurricanes hit the California coast? Or less likely?
Well, mainly because the waters are really cold up there. The upper winds aren't really all that favorable. Yeah. So you have to get last year we had a few pretty strong storms that made it really far north.
Yeah.
We joke, hurricane guys, we joke about this being the year that California gets a storm, but there's nothing to say that there's any better chance this year than there would be in any other year.
Okay, do you know the strongest, what were the strongest winds with Hurricane Andrew in 1992, the recorded strongest winds?
Yeah, there were a Cat 5, so over 160 miles per hour, sustained winds and gusts even higher than that. Andrew was awful.
Yeah, no, it was awful. Okay, so now we're looking at the satellite. We can see it right there.
Yeah.
Now, this is the Eastern Pacific. So their season started on May 15th.
Right.
Explain what's going on. We've got a really nice storm right there, major hurricane.
Yeah, so that's Andres over there to the west.
That's why I had you say that, because I'm not about to say that.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
I wasn't about to say that.
I took some Spanish in college, but... so this one's rocking. I mean,
yes.
It was up to 145 miles per hour, and I think the latest advisory is 140 miles per hour.
And you described this as kind of an annular hurricane?
Yeah, so you can kind of see it behind us here. Yeah. This is a microwave. This is like looking at an MRI through the storm. Is this looping? Oh, it's not looping.
It's having a little trouble with connected, but...
Thanks a lot, Ari.
We never have
I'm just
technical
kidding.
difficulties on here. But anyway, like when they become annular, what happens is you don't see the rain bands spiraling in. There was a point where it sort of resembled that, but I don't think it was truly an annular hurricane.
Yeah. But it's somewhat similar. It's trying to loop. It's
right.
like occasionally looping right here.
If you see it behind us, you can kind of see the point there where you get the deep reds right around the eye.
Yeah.
But the only reason that matters is because when you have these annular hurricanes, they tend to be slow to weaken.
Yeah.
So this one, more than likely, it's going to weaken because it's moving toward colder waters, but it might be pretty slow to do that.
So basically, we'd call this a fish storm because it's not heading toward any land or anything like that. It's just something to beautifully see on satellite.
But it makes some pretty awesome photos. I don't know if this will come up if I pull it up, but this is
it is. It's right here.
This was a tweet from the International Space Station. I think this is the coolest thing. These guys, I mean, just you imagine waking up and looking out your window, and this is what you see.
I know. I want to be up there with him.
Yeah.
I mean, Astro Terry. I mean, if you don't follow him on Twitter, obviously his photos.
If this gig doesn't work out, then I'll be an astronaut.
I think you should go up there anyway and study hurricanes from space, right? We can try and make that happen.
I'm down with that.
Make some phone
calls. No better
calls.
place to study hurricanes.
Yeah, and now we have a newly formed tropical storm behind this hurricane. Now let's point.
Blanca.
Yeah, that's why I had to pronounce that again. Do you like how I'm making you do that?
Well, did we have the Blanca River in Texas this week?
Yes,
so,
yeah. I know. It can be a little, confusing.
Yeah, so this one, it doesn't look like a whole lot, but pretty messy. But the conditions, this was going to stay down here for a while. So
okay.
has
It looks
a potential
kind of like a mess right now.
Yeah,
right?
it's really hard to see with this satellite picture. We have these tools that let us kind of look through those clouds to see a little better. But the main takeaway from this is if you look at the track on this, is that it's not moving. It's just going to sit where it is for a while, and then eventually it'll start moving. But that's not a good direction for that cone. People here probably don't remember, but if we do have people on Periscope from Mexico, the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula was hit really hard by Odile late last year, so they don't need another one of those.
Yeah, and the ocean waters are pretty warm all the way up into.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual to get really a category. That's some of the video.
Oh wow!
That was from Josh Morgerman. If you don't follow Josh on Twitter, you need to go and do that right now. Forgot, is it Ice Cyclone? Or I can't remember his Twitter handle.
It's something like that. Yeah.
But Josh is. He's crazy in the best sense of the word.
Being in this,
he's a smart guy.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
Smart,
but he puts himself in places that I would never recommend putting yourself in. And the reason this is good is because there's no other way that we can really show you how bad it is.
Yeah.
I could never recommend anyone do this, but it's great that we have the video to show you how bad it can be in a Category 3 hurricane.
No, it can. Yeah. And something else, we've got some new flood surge products that are coming out this year.
Yeah.
And someone had said before, it's not on here now, but they wanted us to debunk the fact that it's not just coastal flooding that's an issue with tropical cyclones. It's inland flooding too now. Something I remember from the Carolinas, I wasn't actually down here, but Hurricane Floyd in 1999, it was a Category 2, I think, and it just sat off the North Carolina coast just churning and dumping rain on Raleigh and Greenville, and basically flooded the Tar River in Greenville, North Carolina, and basically East Carolina University was closed for weeks.
Yeah, and it's the weaker ones too, especially. I mean, Floyd was a hurricane when it moved inland, but we get these tropical storms. I want to say 3 of the 5 wettest tropical cyclones on record were tropical storms and tropical depressions, not hurricanes.
And is that
so? This whole if it's not a hurricane, it's only a tropical storm is baloney. I mean, you can get, because the flooding is such a big thing.
Is it because the storm, because it's a weaker system, that it's not as influenced by the strong upper level winds, so it will move? Or is it just more of a blocking pattern?
I guess,
this is me asking Michael, since he's the expert.
I guess you mean that's specific. You mean specific to Floyd, or just in general?
Just in general, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like
a case by case.
Yeah, it's because it's a more disorganized system. The rainfall, the convection is more scattered.
Okay.
It's not as organized, which is not really. It's the same thing as when we fly into hurricanes. Flying into the weaker storms actually makes for a rougher ride than flying into a. So if you hear somebody say you flew into a tropical storm, you probably yawn when you hear them say that. But those rides on the plane can be a lot worse than the Category 5 hurricanes because the convection is just so all over the place.
And you've done that before, right?
Yes.
You've flown into tropical storms and major hurricanes.
Well, I haven't done the major hurricanes.
Okay.
No, I haven't been that lucky. But,
still,
there aren't a whole lot of those.
Yeah.
And then when you get on the plane, the frustrating part about getting on an airplane when you fly into these things is inevitably, especially the NOAA planes, there's some light that comes on in the middle of the flight. And then they're like, well, we got to turn around. And you go, well, I was just on this plane for 3 hours, and we're almost there, and now we have to turn around?
Oh, God. So, see, I would not want to be on one of those flights. Yeah. No, not at all. So, yes, we're ready. We're ready.
All right, I know this is a tough one, but how about what's the estimated time of the first event in the Atlantic? Now, here's one thing I noticed, and this is kind of a question.
I can tell you that. I got an
you
answer
can come on camera. Ari, you can come on camera.
No, that's okay.
No, it was.
I've had my fair share of camera time.
It was honest, so I have an answer to that.
Yeah, we already had that one. You're right. That's a good answer. You're right.
Nice trivia.
Listen, here's the thing. We look back at some of these big El Nino years, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that I noticed was the years that did have the landfalls. We're saying it only takes one.
Right.
It seems like it's a lot of the A and B names. Does it tend to be that for some reason these early hurricanes are worse than El Nino years?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just because they're less in general. What do you think? I don't know.
Well, I think the slower years is just because you have fewer storms. So what happens is you end up, the first storm you get is maybe in August, and it's a big storm, like an Andrew or an Alicia. And I think it's more has to do with the number of storms that you get, and just happens to be that the first storm is later in the season.
Yeah.
The Atlantic is funny. The Atlantic's, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at the Hurricane Center this weekend. He said the Atlantic is so all over the place. I mean, you can get a storm form in April, you can get the first storm form in April, you can get the first storm form in August. So it's just,
Crazy. All right,
it's a crapshoot.
We always say, though,
to
answer your question, Ari,
Yeah.
August 20th, we always say is sort of the bell in the Atlantic.
Okay.
So when we get to August 20th, after that, things really pick up.
Interesting. So
don't plan coastal vacation. No, I'm just kidding. You can. Just get insurance.
So, if somebody asked a question earlier, they live in Jacksonville, they said, would I be more likely to be affected by a hurricane that forms in the Gulf or the Atlantic in Jacksonville?
That's a tough one.
It depends on the time of year. I would say if you're early or late in the season, if it's in June or October, then it's going to be from the Gulf. If it's later in the season or middle part of the season, say September, August, it's probably going to be from the Atlantic.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this one, but just to confirm, when was the last above average hurricane season?
Oh, that would be 2012.
Really?
19 storms. We had 19 storms in 2012.
Oh my gosh, that just shows you. I'm another one of these severe storm guys. I'm not a big hurricane season guy. So
no, that's okay. I didn't know. I was going to guess like 2010. I honestly haven't,
I'm trying to think. Yeah, we had like three years in a row with above normal activity. Yeah, it's it's easy to forget these things. We have a few quiet hurricane seasons.
Now, tell us a little bit about the new products coming out that are hopefully going to help people prepare more. And you maybe have graphics for this too.
Yeah, if we have any of those storm surge graphics, let's talk about that.
Yeah, because you did the research, right? For you helped.
Well, I helped develop these products when I was in NHC.
So we've got the guy that helped develop all the new products coming out this year, right here at the Weather Channel. Michael Lowry.
No, it's no pressure at all, right?
No, it's fantastic because people don't realize because flooding kills more than anything else related to hurricanes, right?
When I came to the Hurricane Center, there was this desire to have some new things for storm surge. We really didn't have anything to show people where we think the storm surge is going to be. So there's two new products that the Hurricane Center has debuted, and this is just the general idea that it's really the water that kills. And your point about the freshwater flooding, 27%, 50% of people die from storm surge. So storm surge has been this big hazard that we just haven't addressed. It's like the big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're trying to do with these new products. So we have an inundation map, a flooding map. That's what we're calling it.
Okay.
That shows us where we think what we think the highest potential flooding is going to be. And then we have this guy here, which is the storm surge warning, which is going to be a prototype product for this hurricane season.
And so we've never issued storm surge warnings before.
It's amazing to me that we haven't. No, we have flash flood warnings, we have tornado warnings, we have high wind warnings. We don't have a storm surge warning. So we're going to have that for the first time this hurricane season.
Oh, that's good.
By the way, this is not a current map, just so people know.
Yeah, no, this isn't actually what's happening. This is just an example of what it would look like. But this is that flood map that I was telling you about. That really maps the potential flooding down to your city and almost to your neighborhood, and it gives you a sense of how high that water is going to be in these sort of buckets, up to 3 feet, and then up to 9 feet in the red.
So what constitutes a storm surge warning and a watch? Or will you have watches, storm surge watches?
Yes, there will be a watch and then there will be a warning. But it doesn't necessarily coincide with the hurricane watch and warning.
Okay.
Because sometimes you can have storm surge that comes up well in advance of the winds.
Okay, that's good to know.
Ike is a good example. Ike was one where 24 hours before the storm made landfall, there was a major push of water that flooded a lot of coastal communities. Dennis was another one in 2005. St. Mark's got hit with 9 feet of water where they were like 180 miles from where the storm actually made landfall.
And that's crazy to think about, though, that the size of it compared to a tornado. A hurricane's massive. It can be extremely...
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you can get this storm surge impacts outside of the hurricane warning.
Yeah. And even with Sandy was a massive storm.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what's the criteria for a storm surge warning?
It's just life-threatening storm surge.
Okay. So there's no set criteria.
I think at this point there's no 4 foot. I think they might be using 3 feet, but I'd have to go back and look at that because they're still in an experimental mode. In other words, they're still working on that definition. That's the idea this year is they'll test it this year.
Yeah.
And they'll see how that criteria works, and if they need to adjust it, they'll adjust it.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Good. Yeah. All right, guys. I think we're getting close to ending. Any final questions? Anything from our viewers here in the studio? Burgundy. Yes. Any questions? Beth.
These are.
Let's see.
I got no questions.
You have no
How
questions?
a hurricane gets an eye within an eye. That's what someone just wrote.
How does it get an eye within an eye?
Or eye wall replacement? Is that what he's talking about?
Oh, maybe concentric eye walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. And why it happens? We actually have here at the Weather Channel, Matt Sikowski. If you don't follow Matt on Twitter, go follow him now. He's one of the best there is. But Matt really is one of the world experts on eye wall replacement cycles. But the idea is that you have this inner eye of the hurricane, and then you have an outer eye that forms, and the outer eye robs the inflow from the inner eye. So you have winds that are coming in, converging into the hurricane.
Yeah.
That outer eye is like a I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a fortress. It can't get the flow at the surface can't get through, and then the outflow on the inner eye can't get out. It's like a toll booth.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
interesting.
So you have two things that are going on. It's blocking the inflow, and then it's also blocking the outflow from the inner eye. So what happens is the inner eye collapses, and then the outer eye takes
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I think eye wall replacement cycles are one of the cool. If you're like a young meteorologist or just a weather geek, they're some of the coolest things in nature you'll ever see. Like,
and follow Michael on Twitter because, like, seriously, he pumps out the most amazing tweets. I just want to retweet them all, and then it turns into a Michael Lowry Twitter stream.
I don't know about that.
Yes.
Just try to keep up with you, Jen.
Yeah, I know. I got to keep up with it.
Well, can you like repeat what we're looking at going forward with what's?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do a recap of the Eastern Pacific really quick since that's up.
So we got 2 storms in the Eastern Pacific.
Yep.
We didn't get to the Atlantic, and I'm sure we have a lot of Atlantic people, or at least U.S. people, that are watching. Not a whole lot in the Atlantic going on. I don't think there's a weak area of low pressure the models are trying to hint at off the southeast coast by late week. Doesn't look like there's going to be much there. Wind patterns just aren't there yet.
Yeah.
But these 2 guys, Blanca, Andres is exiting and Blanca's entering. So you'll hear us talk a lot about Blanca this week and into this weekend, especially if that cone sort of edges back toward Mexico and Baja Peninsula.
And basically the time to prepare is now because, as you know, and we've talked about too, I mean...
I feel like an old man.
Because
you're telling people, like, you got to go get your radios and you got to get your batteries.
But it's smart to at least have somewhat of a base just in case. Always have that, and then, when a serious threat comes, obviously, get everything else.
But it's really true. Like,
it can happen in a couple days, and then people rush to the store. Even when there's a chance for snow in the south, here in Atlanta, people run to the store and the milk and bread's gone.
You think you need 2 weeks to form a Category 4 hurricane? You need 2 days.
Yeah.
You don't need much time.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just have everything ready, and hopefully we won't have any storms this year, and we'll keep everything away from folks. But
thanks you guys for watching. We appreciate the questions, and we'll see you next time.